Oh man, DMC community, we need to have a word. We need to talk a little bit about how the community has been getting a little bit antsy, a little bit too worrisome about the future of Devil May Cry because DMC5 did not get any lifespan updates in the form of DLC and rumors that did not come into fruition. Now, I want to talk about the basis of these rumors, how they started, and sort of my opinion on them, and going from there. People are essentially, and I cannot talk about this without spoilers, by the way, so spoiler alert, it's already in the title. It's the only way I could be fully transparent about the issue. So here we go. Vergil shows up at the end of DMC5. He merges with Urizen. He's basically V, if you didn't know that already. He merges with his demon form Urizen, and they both form to create the titular anti-hero reformed yet again, the Alpha and the Omega. And then you fight them in two boss fights at the end of DMC5, which is kind of reminiscent of the reboot because it sort of looks like some of the same shit going on with that at the end of the game, but it's really cool and awesome, and the reboot failed in that regard. So it's really engaging, except for the fact that Nero makes the Vergil boss fight super piss easy, which I don't know why they decided to go down that route, but I guess it had to happen in context with the story. Later on, we see that a lot of fan demand comes up, and fan demand is great. You know, it shows that you're really still interested in the project as a consumer. You really want to see all these things come into fruition, and you really want more. You just want more out of the developer. So more people clamored for Vergil DLC. They were like super excited. They were like going on rumors saying that, you know, oh, they're gonna possibly put in Trish and Lady, and they're gonna make Ladies Night DLC. That was a rumor. Okay, fair enough. It's like, it's okay to be excited. But one thing that I don't like is how this flipped on its head, and people are acting like they have been betrayed because they have not been listening to any of the recent statements from Matt Walker and Hideaki Itsuno. And they said DMC5 is a complete package. There's not going to be any more DLC updates for this game. Itsuno has moved on to a new project that will hopefully be unveiled at E3 2020 or in the future. That's also fair enough. A developer should not be hampered with their ambitions to move forward. I 100% believe that if they wanted to make DMC6 the next day, I would not protest against that idea, and I'm gonna talk about that later in the video. I'm assuming the fan base feel like they are owed something because Vergil showed up at the end of the game. I agree that V isn't really the most riveting character to play with in DMC5, and he felt like a substitute for Vergil appearing later in the game when people mostly just wanted to play with Vergil and not this new character with this new moveset that probably didn't appeal to them as much as it did when you played with Vergil in DMC3 Special Edition and DMC4 Special Edition. There's not going to be much pleasing in that regard if they did stick to DMC5 and they decided to get greedy and say, hey, we want to make a DMC5 Special Edition. I don't think many people would even accept that, even if you do get Vergil, because half of the community are tired of getting special editions and waiting for Vergil to be a character in the game, and he's a special edition character. Many people aren't going to accept that unless it's a free upgrade or heavily discounted, in my opinion. Now, when we go to Itsuno's statements, when we go to the crux of why this is happening, why this is not happening, etc., he did say, okay, maybe there could be the possibility of multiple characters appearing down the road in DMC5 if the game sells beyond expectations. And it did well. It did 2 million copies. That is impressive. That is still impressive for a franchise that has been dormant for nearly 11 years, right? That is still super good. But maybe it's not enough. I was pointing this out on Twitter. Maybe it should have outsold RE2, which is a remake of a game that sold 4 million copies. Maybe Capcom wanted more than you personally estimated. We don't know the logistics and the specifics of that particular quote. Maybe the fans who wanted more, who wanted to make their voices more heard, maybe that didn't count over the greenbacks of DMC5 and the way it's selling right now and the way it's progressing, because Capcom is a business. They look at the financials first before any fan outcry or fan voices second. We all know this. This is something to expect with any corporation. Money talks, bullshit walks. So I think people are overreacting in that regard. Just because they said it doesn't mean a developer cannot change their mind or work on other projects or completely flip the script if something else gets greenlighted, or maybe they can't tell you because they're under NDA and they want to surprise you with something in the future. It could be a variety of factors, but once again, Matt Walker said, hey, we're not doing any more DMC5 DLC. Bloody Palace, that was it. That was it. Itsuno has moved on to a new project. We don't know the specifics. All we know is that supposedly Itsuno approached Capcom and he said, either I want to do DMC5 or Dragon's Dogma 2, and DMC5 was chosen, and he didn't do that other project, which is Dragon's Dogma 2. And then Matt Walker said they don't want to have DMC in limbo ever again like it was in that 11-year time gap between DMC4 and DMC5. The fans are indeed getting some good news, because now we have a developer, after he moves on from Dragon's Dogma, will probably have another DMC title release in a relatively short time compared to how it was during DMC4 and DMC5. So the fans are getting some good news back. Why would you want the man to regress and work on DMC5 for like more DLC, and then the changes could be either significant or minimal depending on the situation? I mean, I think Itsuno said himself DMC4 Special Edition took him a while to make, so he will be working on a last generation project. The technology could be better, the technology could be more significant, the technology could kick ass for DMC6. And we're stuck here wondering about DLC. We're being worrisome about DLC that's probably not going to come because the developer changed their minds. Yeah, I think it's time to probably move on from this notion of DMC5 DLC and let Itsuno do his thing, and hopefully the franchise does not become dormant. Hopefully they don't release a special edition and they get entirely like complacent with their goals and they decide to revert back to their greedy ways. Let's hope that they do the right thing and they make a full-fledged sequel with all new story mechanics, all new gameplay mechanics, and all new stuff to play with Vergil, Dante, and Nero. I think that would be the best outcome moving forward instead of the Vergil DLC. So I'm not against the people that are upset. I just think they should think outside the box a little bit more than expected. And I did make a poll about this on Twitter. I said, what would you prefer? Let me pull it up right now. Let's see. We're doing this on the fly, off the cuff. Let's see here. Okay, so I said you can only pick one. Compromises exist, so what will it be? Option 1, Vergil DLC for DMC5, but rushed to meet fan demand, so new additions are minimal outside of Vergil, which mostly aligns with what they would do if they used Vergil's downfall as a basis. Not too much of a basis, but just a bit of a basis. There will be 1 or 2 new enemies. There would be a couple of new moves to play with, but some of the moves would harken back to the OG Vergil, and that's it. That's all you're getting. Maybe a 5-hour or 8-hour experience. That's all you'll be getting, and that's it. And honestly, once you shelf that single player DLC, you're not going to keep going back to it unless the replay value is great. Once you unlock everything, once you're a completionist, once you get everything you need to get, you drop that DLC like a bad habit, and it's shorter than the main game usually. If it's not like this big RPG expansion, we're talking about a linear hack and slash game that's going to be like 5 hours or 6 hours of cutting things up, and that's it. You really have to think about this whole lifespan argument if DMC is not like super expansive on content to begin with. Mostly Devil May Cry games are meant to be replayed over and over on higher difficulties, and that's it. So I don't know what people were expecting with piles and piles of DMC DLC coming to DMC 5. I just think that was kind of a pipe dream at best, and I'm kind of glad they at least didn't forget to put Bloody Palace in the game, because that also extends the life value of the game. Hypothetically, once you finish this DLC on the highest difficulty, Dante Must Die, there's nothing much that the game has to offer outside of getting all the collectibles, and I assume you would finish that already. So there's going to be that moment where you just stop playing the DLC entirely. I would rather have a new game where there's new stuff going on as opposed to something I already blasted through. I did get my fill, but now I'm going to be stuck wanting more for that cliffhanger at the end of the DLC, possibly to be resolved if I want to wait for a sequel. And I just rather would have the sequel in my hands, having all that stuff told to me there, instead of having DLC, which has older mechanics in play and not anything really too ambitious in terms of Vergil just playing around with Yamato. Next, we're going to move on to option 2. I said you could either take option 1, which is the DLC for DMC 5, or option 2, which is a full-fledged sequel, Devil May Cry 6 with new mechanics, new story, and all the issues from DMC 5 remedied, but it takes like 2 or 3 years to make. And 45 people as of this moment voted for option 2. They would rather see a sequel to DMC 5 that takes like 2 or 3 years to make with all new mechanics, as opposed to working on old DLC for Vergil and having minimal results in the process. I think we have just hit that point in the Devil May Cry community where it's kind of getting hard to please people. We had the inertia business with tech guys versus non-tech guys. We had people complaining about the RE engine and how some of the characters look with their faces. We had people complaining about micros, and they turned out to be wrong because the Faust hat basically won you the lottery. Again, why can't we go back to that awesome point in time when the DMC community was great and we were just hyped for new releases? I mean, it's not like the well is going to be dry entirely if they are promising that there won't be a DMC drought if we have the new anime coming out, which is done by Adi Shankar, which is, I mean, he did Castlevania's anime, which was amazing. Go watch it if you haven't watched it already. I believe this guy is going to do something great with that quality for Devil May Cry, and we possibly might get a new game in like 2 to 3 years. It won't probably take that long because Matt said he does not want another DMC drought if he can help it. So with all that pull, we're probably going to get a sequel, or we're probably going to get something developed internally that we don't know about. And I don't know why people can't be happy that DMC is a complete game. DMC 5 in particular is complete, and they don't want to do any more content. They don't want to go backward. They want to go forward. And Itsuno wants to make a DMC 6. What's all the hubbub about? What's all the complaints about? I don't understand the frustration. The lifespan of DMC 5 is done, and the developers said that is currently done, and they're not going to put out those characters. They want to move on and move forward and create more dynamic experiences. And one of the excuses, well, not really an excuse, I would say it's actually a good idea. One of the reasons behind it is because they probably want to move on to next generation consoles where they can create better frame rates, better graphics, and advance the RE engine to a new degree, so Devil May Cry 6 could possibly play better on next generation. I don't know why people get upset and they try to to hamper advancements and keep things down just because they want instant gratification for DLC. Someone shared it in my comments best: a delayed game is eventually good, but a rush game is forever bad. And I don't want them to rush anything. I want Itsuno to take his time, because if you remember correctly, DMC4 was a botched and rushed experience, and it was half complete, and the game really suffered because of it. There was extra Dante levels that was going to happen. It never happened, and Dante, I think someone made a good video essay of this. Some levels and bosses really don't fit Dante as much as they fit Nero. Do we really want a game that plays like this again, where everything is inconsistent when you play with different characters? Do we want this rushed experience yet again, where we lose content in the process just because we want the game out early and we want instant gratification for this lifespan that we want to continue for DMC5? I think not. I want them to move on, create something ambitious, create something fun, learn from the mistakes of the past, and move on. And I believe everyone should really at least take this philosophy into consideration. It's fine if you're disappointed, but don't feel betrayed, because they can move on to create something good in the future, and you might not even know it yet, and you're just going to get more angry the more you dwell on it. Stop acting like you need to be pleased specifically, and think outside the box, because the world is big and you're not the only one in it. Let's see what's done with the franchise next before jumping to conclusions, because anything can happen, and that's how I feel about it. This is Renegade Operative signing off. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this opinion piece on what I think about all the complaints and nitpicks going on with like the DMC5 DLC. A lot of people are kind of upset that the game is supposedly complete and the developers said, we're moving on, we're on to the next thing. I want to see what they do with next gen, because I do believe that could enhance the DMC experience, because consoles were already chugging with the RE engine under DMC5. Like I said, go watch those Digital Foundry videos of RE2 Remake and of course DMC5 at Digital Foundry. You will see some frame drops. They tried their best to have all the compromises in place, but still, I think the best way to play some of those games will be on PC until they actually get to a point in consoles where the games run smooth, and they haven't yet. So I believe the RE engine is on its last legs during the current generation of consoles, and they want to move on and create new experiences with the new SKUs that they got for the PS5 and Xbox Scarlet. That's also a logical thing when technology advances forward as well. You're going to want to be on those next generation consoles. Anyway, like I said, if you liked the video, be sure to like, share, subscribe, and let me know, what do you think about the possibility of not getting Vergil DLC and waiting for a full-blown sequel? What would you prefer? Sound off in the comments, let me know, and I will talk to you guys next time. Later.